Hey everybody, this is Wild and Woolly Game coming to you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere, to talk to you today about head-ons in War Thunder. And these are an integral part of any aerial fighting experience, and really they will be a huge part of almost all of your matches because more likely than not, in each of your matches, if you play fighters often, you will have head-ons. One, if not two, or more. So first, before I even get into this, please like, subscribe, comment. It means a lot to me. I'll be trying to post more War Thunder videos over time, and maybe some Kerbal Space Program videos, but that remains to be seen. Anyways, to try to kind of get into the whole head-on experience. So what is a head-on? Essentially what it is imagine you're flying just in a straight line, especially at the beginning of a match. This will happen more often. You're flying in a straight line, an enemy is coming right for you, opposite direction, so again, right for you. And the idea behind a head-on is to really mitigate the need, or have no need, for a dogfight. So German fighters oftentimes do not turn quite as well as English, and especially Japanese fighters. So what you will do is, in order to end that risk, you'll just shoot at them as they're shooting at you. So the thing that makes German planes so deadly in the head-on is that most of the time, almost universally amongst all of their fighters, they have a huge concentration of firepower in the nose of the plane. So here you have two LMGs, it's pretty standard fare, right in the nose of the plane, which can do some damage. But then you have two 20mm cannons right in the wing root of the plane, which is huge. It's just a really huge benefit, a bonus to head-on. So the FW-190C is not really a great example of it, so I'll show you maybe a better one in the BF-109G6. Again, you have two heavy machine guns, and then right here in the middle, coming out of the middle of the nose, you have a 30mm cannon. Ridiculous, right? And the great thing about German planes is that you can have the option of having underwing gondolas, gun gondolas, right? So these aren't as useful in actual head-ons. They can still be useful, don't get me wrong, and they can actually get you quite a few kills. Although, again, the concentration of firepower in the nose is what really has always done it for me. But these are more so useful in dogfights, especially in a turn. If you can catch an enemy in a turn, more especially with their wings vertical, this will just tear them apart because it has a wider spread, essentially, than these. These shoot in a straight line. So again, imagine yourself in a head-on. These shoot in a straight line, so you have no problem aiming, right? Whereas these, and a better example would be an English fighter. So in the famous Spitfire, the Mark 9, you have two guns in the middle of the wings. So rather than, like with the German, or most German fighters, having most, if not all, of your firepower coming exclusively out of the nose and firing in a straight line, now all of a sudden you have to worry about gun convergence. And gun convergence is a huge thing when it comes to head-ons. That's why you will oftentimes not see English or Japanese fighters, or maybe not Japanese, but oftentimes you won't see English fighters participate in head-ons, and if they are, they're not as successful because they have to worry about convergence and whether or not the enemy is at optimal distance for their convergence to actually hit them accurately. Whereas, again, Germans can just focus most of their firepower right in a straight line, and that's it. It's a pretty straightforward system with Germans, and what I will at least try to end up doing is show you kind of how to best utilize the head-on between every country in the game thus far, so USA, Germany, USSR, whatever, England even, and, just try to go over that. But anyways, just for the sake of it, and again, this is a just general demonstration. I feel like the Germans are best at it. I'll go over, in a live fire demonstration here, how best to head on. And again, it's a huge part of your game. Sometimes you'll have 30, 40, 50% of your kills, if not more, all from head-ons. And I'll try to give you the best way to not only do a head-on, because it's not just flying straight in at your enemy, but also surviving it. If not unscathed, it's just slightly damaged. So just watch this, and I'll try to show you the best I can on how to do that.
Okay, so because my internet's a little bad, I was only able to like kind of record post-match, but it still gives you the same effect. So I'm not going for this Yak 3U. He'll just kind of outrun me. Instead, I'm going for this F4U at the bottom left of the screen, and I want you to notice as I'm engaging him, I swivel up and down to the best of my abilities. And you're going to want to, I mean, he's a little bit more, he's coming at me directly, so shooting at him directly is kind of the thing that you want to do. But this guy is going to be a little bit above me, so you want to shoot a little bit ahead of him, as you can see there, while, to the best of my ability, my wing is shot off, swiveling up and down and kind of giving some lateral movements. So, and this again, I'm being shot down here. But again, what just happened there really shows the benefit of having, basically nose-mounted weaponry, primarily nose-mounted weaponry, because there's no convergence, and despite the fact that I had my wing shot off, I was able to take out a second opponent with no additional damage to my plane. So, the no additional damage didn't really serve me, but it can serve you, especially if your plane is still largely functional. So, some other pieces of advice that I can offer before I get into this clip here is that it really actually does help, even though this seems like a pretty static maneuver, just going head on almost like you're jousting. It does help to have a maneuverable aircraft. And there's a few reasons for this. One reason is so that, you can dodge enemy fire. Now, when you have an enemy that's using stealth rounds, it's difficult to do so. However, most enemies tend to just kind of shoot dead center, right? Which helps, again, when you have a maneuverable plane, because if they're shooting dead center, then you can swivel, you can, do rolls, and things like that. And to that point, good rolling plane can actually be your best friend when it comes to head-on. One of the reasons why it makes this is one of the reasons why Focke-Wulf 190s tend to be so deadly in the head-on. One, because they're quite maneuverable in head-on situations, but two, they also have such a high concentration of firepower. So now, in relation to this, you're not always going to get out alive. So even though I destroyed his plane, my pilot died. My plane actually still, as you can see here, it's just kind of falling through the sky. My plane was still perfectly functioning. Now, there's a few ways you can mitigate this. Again, through having a more maneuverable plane, but also through, mainly just increasing your pilot's vitality. Sometimes this is just going to happen. It's impossible not to die at all in this game up through a certain point. I mean, you might not die in the first match you play of War Thunder or the second, but you will die, and you will die a lot, especially in planes, and a lot of those deaths will come from pilot deaths. It just happens. Your plane, like in this scenario, can be perfectly unscathed, but it doesn't mean that you didn't do the right thing. From my perspective, as you can see from the plane here, I actually had a pretty successful head-on. My only issue was he had a lucky shot and he took me out. So let's go on to another example here, and I can kind of show you maybe a little bit more successfully. Well, not more successfully, but another situation in which a good head-on can still fail. So again, you're not going to be able to win every head-on every time, and it's not that they'll kill you necessarily through with their plane, but it's that their plane will just kind of drift into you, and that is a big issue. So right here with this BF-109, as you're going to see, I get damaged. I'm not going to get out of this fight unscathed, but just watch exactly where I'm shooting to. So being that he's more or less on the same plane as me, albeit he's vertical, I try to shoot at him, maybe a little bit above him, again, because he's vertical. You want to make sure that they're kind of flying into the bullets too. It's almost kind of like the reverse of when you're chasing down a plane. So, but still the same principle. So you want to make sure that they lead into the bullets, but it's happening at a different angle and a much faster pace. So this kind of goes what's about to happen here. This kind of goes into what I was saying before with you want to have a maneuverable aircraft and make sure you're doing maneuvers while you're actually doing it head on. So I'm trying to do that, but I did it too late and his plane destroyed me. So as you can see here, I mean, if that had went the way I planned, his plane would have harmlessly skimmed right over the bottom of my plane, went just above it, maybe about a few inches or a foot, and this happens quite often, and I would not have died. I would have lived to fight another day. Either went after this F4U over here or the B-25 over here. See, now it's really good practice to flip your plane kind of at the beginning or near the end of a head-on, and you have to take into account your plane's rolling capability because some planes will just be able to do this better. Again, Focke-Wulf 190s are incredible for this, and you will live quite a bit if you can just flip it because you just have so much mass above the wings, whereas you have virtually none below the wings here. If they hit your cockpit, you're dead. If they hit, the tail, you now have no control surfaces, which I'm sure most people know about. It's just so many capabilities, so many possibilities for a dead plane just to annihilate you. So even though what I did was good in practice, it was a little bit too late, and it just didn't really work. But if that was a Focke-Wulf, then I probably would have, I would have been able to actually pull off that maneuver, even given the timing that I had there. So, in contrast to German planes, right now I'm flying a Japanese plane, and there's a big difference between German and Japanese planes in this game. And the main one is this. German planes are much heavier, they've got much heavier firepower, and a lot of the firepower is concentrated in the nose. In Japanese planes, you have some in the nose and some in the wings. Typically, the wing-based firepower is much more substantial. So what I'm doing here is I'm going for this P-51, and you want to pre-maneuver basically. Make sure that this guy is not going to come in and kill me. So watch this. Before he even gets into targeting range, essentially, I'm just going to try to outmaneuver him. I know that early P-51s really are not all that maneuverable. Well, they're fairly maneuverable, but not a ton. And so I just do myself a nice half barrel roll and make sure he just goes around me. So you should avoid head-ons with Japanese planes, really any plane that's got great maneuverability and wing-based guns. Just because you're more likely than not, you're not going to win against somebody who's good at head-ons and who has a plane made for it. So as you can see there, I had a great follow-up, which is what you should be doing, and I'm not far enough away where I can't kill him. He's still within range. I'd say anywhere up to around 3/4 of a kilometer. Really, it's best if you're within a half, but this is still good range. And as you can see here, I try to coax him into it. Again, I know I just kind of skipped to this part, but so what I'm doing, I just kind of coax him into it by faking that I'm not really interested in killing him. And I more or less pull off the same move. Again, you want to aim a little bit above the cockpit oftentimes. That tends to be where you're going to aim if you're not shooting directly at them. Just, again, so that they could fly into the bullets. But, again, being that this is a Japanese plane, they're lighter, more maneuverable, don't have the roll rate that you want for a good head-on. You want to do maybe a nice barrel roll, or something of that nature. Just get out of the way and then swing back around and then just start lighting them up, load on them, and it's just, you won't have the speed advantage, and a lot of the time you won't be able to actually catch them afterwards, but if you can put some good shots on them, that's how you're going to want to do it. And this is not exclusive to Japanese planes. You can do it with any highly maneuverable plane. And again, with any maneuverable plane like that, a head-on should not be the first resort. It should be the last choice. Especially if for whatever reason you're not as maneuverable as you could be, maybe because of plane damage or something of that nature. Um, but again, it should not be the first choice to head on in a plane like this. And these maneuverable tactics can be done in other planes as well, even German planes or whatever the case may be. But on a plane like this, use your advantages and know that the enemy, if you're in another plane, like an American or a German plane, know that they will use their advantages against you. Either way, this has been Wild and Woolly Gaming. Glad you guys could watch my video. I hope it provided some insight into what really goes into a successful head-on and how to use your advantages to get a head-on. Just a quick note when it comes to jets and things like that. Oftentimes, jets will have, at least in the case of the MiGs, it says 30 millimeter rounds. They're not going to be as accurate, and thus head-ons will typically not be as successful, especially being that closing speeds are so much higher. So again, you'll want to avoid them, or at least do a partial head-on and kind of pre-maneuver so that you can get a quick follow-up on your enemy and take them out like that. Anyways, again, this has been Wild and Woolly Gaming. Glad you guys could watch my video. Like, comment, subscribe. It really means a ton to me that if you could do any of those things. And see you guys in the sky. Take care, guys.